if MPs don't approve controversial legislation to override parts of the Brexit withdrawal deal. The new bill will break international law, and the Prime Minister's facing a struggle to get the backing of some of his Conservative MPs. A man has been arrested by armed police in Cambridge after a small explosive device was sent through the post to an address in North London this week. He's now being questioned by anti-terrorism officers, and 2 houses in Cambridge are being searched. And Sir Terence Conran, the founder of Habitat, has died aged 88. He also founded the Design Museum and has been described as being instrumental in the redesigning of post-war Britain, including as a pioneer of flat-pack furniture.
BBC Sounds.
Cast your mind back to the so-called second summer of love. A quiet and not so quiet revolution was going on. Motorways, synthesizers, gatherings, 303s and pills.
Ecstasy, the Battle of Rave.
The new unmissable podcast from BBC Sounds. Part drama, part documentary. A tale of music, cat and mouse, and a subculture at odds with the authorities. Rapidly spiralling out of control.
Glow sticks, whistles and everything.
I've never witnessed anything like it.
This is like a revolutionary moment. We all had nothing to lose.
Ecstasy, the Battle of Rave.
Available now on BBC Sounds.
This is 5 Live Sport with Mark Chapman.
Yeah, welcome back. 5 Live Sport, first Saturday of the English football season. Crystal Palace against Southampton is our base from 3 o'clock. Ian Dennis and Rob Green will bring you all the goals as they go in up and down the country. No fans, of course, at any of the games in the Premier League or the Football League, but there are spectators at 2 games in the Scottish Premiership. Roddy Forsyth is at one of them. Ross County against Celtic. 300 in there this afternoon, Roddy.
Yes, indeed, and 300 likewise at Pittodrie for Aberdeen versus Kilmarnock. All home supporters, although there was an interesting report on radio earlier as I was driving up here which said that one of the Ross County fans was a season ticket holder based in Wales. What a journey he must have. But I'm told by the chairman, Roy McGregor, that that's not true, or it's certainly not true today. The 300 fans are mostly in. They're sitting 3 seats apart from each other and 2 rows apart. They're wearing face masks and have been told not to shout or sing, which, as you know from our coverage, is not a prohibition that applies to the opposing dugouts. So it's yet another oddity in an increasingly odd time.
Neil Lennon liked that one. He can shout to the fans and they're not going to be able to shout back.
Actually, Scott Brown was asked about that this week, and we said you won't be able to hear them. He said, I'll be devastated, because he's normally the single target that every opposition set of fans picks out.
Ross County would go above Celtic actually if they win.
Yeah. Their side will leapfrog Celtic, as you say, with a victory, improbable as that may seem. The Staggies are only 2 points behind the champions, who themselves are trailing Rangers by 6 points and Hibs by 3 points, and that's because Celtic have played 2 games fewer than all those sides, having had their fixtures against St Mirren and Aberdeen postponed because of COVID-19 breaches. In their case, it concerned, of course, Bolly Bolingoli, who took a day trip to Spain without telling anybody. So still sounds incredible, even in an incredible time.
Thank you very much, Roddy. Rangers host Dundee United at Ibrox tomorrow. Other games: Aberdeen, Kilmarnock, Livingston, Hamilton, Motherwell, St Johnstone, St Mirren against Hibs. Let's go into the Championship then. Earlier on, Wycombe 0, Rotherham 1, Birmingham 1, Brentford 0. As far as the 3 o'clock games, Bournemouth start life back in the Championship at home to Blackburn. Of course, Jason Tindall in charge now, not Eddie Howe. Sahel Sahi.
Yes, Bournemouth's very own boot room appointment, Mark. Loyal assistant for 12 years, and now he gets his opportunity. Tindall has said he wants his side to play the Bournemouth way, an approach that was the foundation of their 2015 Championship title under Eddie Howe. Several questions remain unanswered at the club. The futures of David Brooks, Joshua King and Lewis Cook, something he'll want resolving sooner rather than later. Blackburn, they finished a solid 11th last time out, and with Tony Mowbray about to start his 4th full campaign with Rovers, he certainly has the nous to navigate them towards the playoff places.
Thank you, Sahel. Now, a lot earlier on 5 Live Sport, we were talking about how certain grounds always seem to be linked with certain commentators and reporters. So whenever I go to Craven Cottage, I always envisage that Alistair Bruce Ball will be there. There is no doubt, whenever we go to Huddersfield, Juliet Farrington is there.
I've got actually a whole row to myself.
It's the Juliet Farrington row. That's what it's actually been called that.
I have been moved from where I normally are, but right. It's a whole complete row, and it's amazing. However, it took a lot to get us on air because nothing worked. And after a few leads and different connection points, we managed to get my mic and kit working. But really, the spotlight isn't on Huddersfield, it's on Norwich, because they've lost their last 12 games. So to get something going as they try and get life back in the Championship up and running. So a lot of eyes on Norwich. Obviously, they've kept the manager, they've kept certain players as well, because Cantwell, Godfrey, Pookie, they've all stayed so far. They're all in the starting 11. One of their new signings as well, Quintilla, also starts. So it's a strong team from Daniel Farke, and you'd think good enough, bearing in mind all the last times I've been at Huddersfield, to get the points here at the John Smith Stadium. Their new coach, though, Carlos Corberán, has got familiar-looking names in his Huddersfield starting lineup as well, including Hamer, Bakuna, Pritchard, Schindler, Diakabi and Stearman. But all the attention on Norwich as they start life after one season in the Premier League back in the Championship.
Thanks, Jules. It's interesting, Andy, isn't it? Because they've got a lot of players who were fancied by Premier League sides or linked to Premier League sides, and it's only Jamal Lewis that has gone so far, and I know there's still a few weeks left of the transfer window.
Yeah, it is. I think they've done well to hold on to them. But I think that, again, that's the model and it's what they've gone for. So maybe what they didn't do so well last season is standing them in good stead this season is that they've been able to hold on to the players because they got relegated. They don't have to sell anybody, so they're getting really good prices. So it's kind of a little bit of kind of give and take. So it's going to be interesting. Huddersfield's an interesting one for me. Carlos Corberán come in from Leeds, hasn't he? The under-23 team there. And listen, I know from playing against them that they play very, very similar to how the Leeds Force team played. So it'll be interesting to see if he tries to implement that and what type of team Huddersfield are going to be this season, because they need a little bit of a spark.
That's surely going to take time to implement at Huddersfield. I mean, it's one thing doing it, well, I don't know, you tell me, but I would imagine it's one thing doing it with Leeds under-23s in a club where everybody's playing the same way because that's what Bielsa wants, to coming into a group of senior players and turning that round immediately.
Yeah, well, listen, I think one thing that you want from a team is, we spoke about it earlier on, you want energy. And when I've seen Huddersfield play, they didn't seem to really have that real kind of energy and desire. Now, if you can get that turned and you can get them going in the right direction and they feel a little bit of success from it, then, it doesn't take all that much to turn it around if they can see that there's results at the end of it for the team.
Let's go to the League One champions Coventry next, back in the second tier for the first time since 2012. They're at Bristol City this afternoon. Katie Shanahan's at this one.
Afternoon, Mark. Now, yes, Coventry will have been dreaming of this day for 8 years as it marks the first day back in the Championship. After being promoted for the second time in 3 seasons, Mark Robinson's side are keen to impress. They made 9 new signings, 4 which start today. Leo Ostigard, who comes in from loan from Brighton, he makes his debut with exciting striker Tyler Walker from Nottingham Forest on the bench and ready to shine. But it's also a special day for Dean Holden as it marks his first match as Bristol City's permanent head coach following the sacking of Lee Johnson. Now, Bristol City, who remember finished 12th last season, bring in 5 new signings, 3 which are poised, ready on the bench. Defenders Alfie Mawson and Stephen Sessignon both joining on loan from Fulham, and the experienced striker Chris Martin.
That's a very knowing nod, Andy, when Tyler Walker was mentioned.
Yeah, I've known Tyler since he was a kid, to be honest with you. Dez's son. Des is a really good friend of mine. Remember having a kick about with them in the back garden when they were young, him and his brother Lewis, who plays as well. So it makes me feel really old now. But listen, Tyler's a good player. He will score goals. I've got no doubt about that. He scored the winner last week for them. He scored goals at Mansfield when he went on loan a couple of seasons ago. Scored goals for Lincoln when he went on there last season. Didn't really get the opportunities that he will feel he deserved at Nottingham Forest, and I've got no doubt that he's going to score goals throughout the season for Coventry. And Mark Robbins, what a job he's done. I've seen them playing in the League 2 playoffs against Notts County a few years ago, and to where they've come and the job that he's done, absolutely phenomenal.
They've got a really good mix, haven't they? I was talking to Mark at an FA Cup draw, not last season, the season before, but they've got this really good mix of young players that they've brought through their academy system, and they've sold a couple of those on, and a really canny scouting department and recruitment department, Andy, that brings in players like Tyler Walker.
Yeah, and then to bring that all together, then you need a good man manager, and Mark Robbins understands people. I actually done that draw with you that day, and I remember speaking to him, and I thought to myself, he comes across really well, like all the players kind of really want to play for him. And let's not forget the problems that club have had over the last few years as well. We're playing at St Andrews, and and all these problems that they've just put to one side, that just overcome, and delighted for them, and really, really hope that they do well this season.
They are at St Andrews again this season, although they are away this afternoon at Bristol City. Cardiff, Sheffield Wednesday next. The home side got to the playoffs last season, beaten in the semi-finals by Fulham. The visitors start the season 12 points adrift of everybody else. Mark Webber.
Yes, chappers, dismay is the word of the day when you talk about the season just gone for these two, but both sides determined to pick themselves up from those setbacks starting now. The challenge ahead obviously bigger though for Sheffield Wednesday with that minus 12-point deficit. Loan returnees Juist van Aken and Matt Penny are the names of interest in the Owls starting 11. Former Cardiff player Kadeem Harris also making his debut. Meanwhile, Kiefer Moore starts for the Bluebirds after his summer switch to the club, as does the Liverpool loanee Shea Ojo.
The other side beaten in the playoff semi-finals last season was Swansea. They start at Preston today. Tom Gales at Deepdale.
Good afternoon, Mark. Yes, just 45 days since the now Premier League striker Ollie Watkins brought Swansea's season to an end. No doubt disappointed, but you can't help but be impressed with manager Steve Cooper's first campaign in senior football. For 2/3 of the season, Preston looked good for a playoff spot at least, but they fell away badly. Just 2 wins in their last 12 saw them finish 9. Others today, neither have significantly strengthened, but I'm certainly keen to see what Wolves loanee Morgan Gibbs-White can do for the Welsh side. 30-plus top-flight appearances, the midfielder looking to kick-start his career under the gaffer who guided him to under-17 World Cup glory.
Now, with apologies to Andy, I have to mention the fact that Nottingham Forest took just 3 points out of the last 18 available at the end of last season to make a right rickets of getting into the playoffs. Today they start at QPR. Jackie Oatley watching this one.
Yeah, I'm sure Andy had his own word to describe what happened, but tragic is the word the Forest boss Sabri Lamouchi used to describe that calamitous end to the season. He says he's spoken just once to his players about the astonishing 6-goal swing in Swansea's favour on that final day. And he's now declared a new chapter with 7 new signings, 3 of whom start today: Colback, Blackett and Freeman. QPR have rather more modest expectations, having lost the scorers of 44 of their goals last season, including starman Eze to Palace. Aussie-born Scotland striker Lyndon Dykes bears most of that burden after joining from Livingston. He makes his debut along with culture defender Rob Dickey, who's joined from Oxford.
Is that fair enough, Andy, do you think? You mention it once, get it over and done with, and then you move on.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the way to go. And I mentioned earlier the kind of the new blood that comes into the team. They're the ones who have to bring it, and they won't be affected by that. What's happened before, and one thing that I will say that I probably didn't say earlier on, and I should, and not just because I'm involved in it, but the academy has been a constant supply of players have come through, and one of them only went to Villa last week for 15 million, Matty Cash, and Jordan Gabriel, another one he played last week, who's just come in to try to replace him. And you look at players that have moved on, and they're the type of they're the type of players that you need to get over things like that, who bring a real energy and a real desire to kind of to put that to bed and move on to the next chapter, because it's gone now. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to focus all your energy on what's coming moving forward.
Talk about academies and good young players. There are certainly a few at Derby that people are talking about this season. They're taking on Reading. A lot of people seem to have concerns about Reading this season. Pat Murphy is at Pride Park for us. Afternoon, Pat.
Hello, Mark. I'm sure Andy's thought this down the years. Isn't it about time Derby pulled the finger out and got promoted? Out of the top flight since 2008. Mel Morris pumping in millions in the past 5 years. Their transfer record beaten 4 times in 3 years. That excellent academy keeps churning out fine young players, 4 of them starting today, showing their ambition by signing Wayne Rooney, yet they could only manage 10th in July after fading away on restart. Now, I think they lack pace in key areas. And the understandable desire to play through Rooney brings its own problems as Derby lacks speed and directness. Rooney's on the bench today, not fully fit. David Marshall, though, makes his league debut in goal. He's an ideal vocal experience signing. As for Reading, the new manager Veljko Paunovic, he only took training this week after quarantine. The Serb played all over Europe and the USA, but 20 first team and under 23 players have been released this summer, so your guess is as good as mine. But at least he got a striker in form. Lucas João, a hat-trick last week in the League Cup. The perfect combo. Left foot, right foot and a header. He'll be expected to build on that.
Thank you very much, Pat. Millwall Stoke next. Two sides who, if you look at a lot of seasons previews, people are tipping to be near the playoffs. Millwall came up just short last season. Stoke, obviously, were battling relegation for most of it. But both sides, John Akers fancied.
Yeah, there's some quiet optimism, I think, in both camps, certainly in the Potteries. Michael O'Neill took over when they were bottom in November, you'll remember, and their form after that would have had them pushing for the playoffs should he have had the whole season. So it will be interesting to see what he can do. He's put two new signings straight in. Morgan Fox, who's joined from Sheffield Wednesday, makes his debut at left back, and former Chelsea midfielder John Obi Mikel, who's 33 now, starts in central midfield. Stephen Fletcher is on the bench, another new signing. Millwall give a league debut to Scott Malone, who's on loan from Derby. Mason Bennett has signed permanently from Derby after a loan spell here last season. He starts, and their manager Gary Rowett's only lost once on the opening day in his last 6 seasons, and that was with Stoke at Leeds in 2018. You have to go back to 2009 for Stoke's last victory on the first day of the season.
Thank you, John. Now let's go to Barnsley and Luton, two sides who escaped relegation just towards the end of the season. Shojo Saka is watching this one for us.
Yes, Mark, both sides are looking to put those squeaky bum seasons well behind them now and kick on. The Barnsley revolution continues here under Gerhard Struber. New signings Dominic Frieser and Mikhail Helik start on the bench. Barnsley going for a club record equalling 6 consecutive clean sheets at home. As for Luton, Nathan Jones' second stint as manager, dominated at the moment by urgent defensive surgery. They conceded 82 times last season, the second worst in the division. That's what their summer signings focus has been on. Luton today, though, have 8 former Barnsley players in their ranks, 4 starting, 4 on the bench.
OK, let's go into League One, into our featured match there. This one is at the County Ground, Swindon. The newly promoted home side welcome Rochdale. Many Rochdale fans hoping that they can do enough to stay in the division. Nikesh Ragani will be keeping an eye on this one.
Yes, good afternoon, Mark, from the sunshine here at the County Ground, where, as you say, we're expecting a good game between two evenly matched sides in League One. Swindon, of course, promoted from League Two after last season ended prematurely. Rochdale managing to stay in League One despite scoring just 39 goals last season. That is going to be their big worry once again, you fear. But big injury problems for Swindon today, with 4 first-team defenders unavailable, just the 5 substitutes on the bench today because of all those injury problems. They've also sold last season's top scorer Owen Doyle. He's gone to Bolton, but despite that, manager Richie Wellens says there'll be a match for anybody in the league in League One. We'll have to wait and see if that comes true. Kick-off in around 8 minutes' time.
Let's go into League Two. Focus on the 2 new boys, starting with Barrow. 48 years since they last kicked a ball in the Football League, and they return with a home game against Stevenage in front of Andy Sixsmith.
Yeah, I know we've had to wait several months for the return of the Football League, but that is nothing on Barrow supporters, chappers. Waited almost half a century, like you say. Today, that wait is over. It's been a pre-season of change in Cumbria. 10 new signings and a new manager too. Former Blackburn midfielder David Dunn replacing Ian Evatt, and they're without top scorer Scott Quigley today because of suspension. Stevenage didn't even exist the last time Barrow were in the Football League, and perhaps fortunate to be in League Two now. Handed a relegation reprieve last month after Macclesfield were handed a points deduction themselves. Boss Alex Revel hoping for an improvement on last season. 3 wins all campaign. He hands debuts to 5 new arrivals. There'll be a minute's silence here before kick-off to remember victims of the coronavirus, in particular former Barrow captain Brian Arrowsmith, who passed away recently. But League Two is back. Barrow Salona, as they're known in these parts, are back. And how good is it to say that football is back too?
Good stuff, Andy. He mentioned Ian Evatt, the former Barrow manager, who is now the manager of Bolton, who are also in League Two now. They start their season home to Forest Green Rovers. Last but by no means least, let's head off to Roots Hall Southend. Aaron Paul is there for us, as we heard from Harrogate chairman Irving Weaver earlier, Aaron, it's a historic day for the Football League's newest members.
It is 106. It's just 106 years into their existence, and Harrogate Town make their maiden their Football League debuts. It's their maiden campaign in the Football League, and what better place to start by the seaside. Don't forget though, Mark, there are Football League debuts for both of the men in the dugouts today. All eyes, of course, on the away one. Simon Weaver leading Harrogate Town out onto the pitch here at Roots Hall for their first ever game in the EFL. His side are riding the crest of a wave, having lost just once in their last 18 games going back to last season. This season, though, it'll be a bit of a learning curve for Harrogate, but they are here to make a mark on the EFL and arrive into this campaign having lost again just once in 18 games going back to last season. They've made a few modest changes to their squad this summer. Former Premier League striker John Stead is still amongst their ranks at 37, He starts on the bench today, though.
Thank you, Aaron. All the goals as they go in throughout the afternoon here on 5 Live Sport. A lot of clubs still doing a programme, despite the fact, obviously, there are no fans in the ground. Crystal Palace have done a programme, and I've been sent the feature that they do in the programme, Fantasy Dinner Party. Now, normally when people do a fancy dinner party, alive or dead, Elvis crops up on there, Nelson Mandela, Muhammad Ali. Damien Delaney's is a truly remarkable fantasy dinner party, and he does qualify it with, I have an absolute fascination with historical leaders. So Rob Green going to Damien Delaney's fantasy dinner party, Napoleon, Chairman Mao, Genghis Khan, the opposite ends of the political spectrum, Joseph Stalin, and then Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. In all my years of, I don't spend a lot of time looking at everybody's fancy dinner parties, but in all my time, I don't think I've ever seen one as amazing as that. No. Napoleon, Chairman Mao, Genghis Khan, Stalin, and Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones.
The Fantasy Genocide Party.
And Keith Richards.
Did you enjoy doing features like that, Andy?
No, not really, to be honest. But I'm just that's absolutely mad.
That is.
And I played with Damien as well when we were younger. He didn't strike me as being that kind of off the rails. But obviously, I missed something.
Oh dear, Statman, thank you for your company this afternoon. Do you want to throw one more stat in there before you go? Something for me to look out for?
I think one of the interesting things, just looking at the Arsenal game again. Aubameyang topped out for ball recoveries and Lacazette topped out for tackles. So two forwards working exceedingly hard off the ball for Arsenal. So very impressive start from Arteta.
Okay, and maybe work out the number of fancy dinner parties that Chairman Mao has been invited to. I look forward to that percentage. Andy, thank you as well. We will see you soon on a Saturday afternoon. So Andy Reid and Statman Dave, it's all about our 3 o'clock football service. Now, you've heard from Rob Green already. Only one Premier League game, remember, at 3 o'clock. Later on, you've got Liverpool Leeds and you've got West Ham against Newcastle. But the Football League is jam-packed. So wherever the goals go in, either there or in the Scottish Premiership, you will hear them first with us here on 5 Live. Alongside Rob is the voice of Saturday afternoons, Ian Dennis.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, I reckon this is the first time we've done this since March, with, of course, due to the coronavirus, the pandemic that has hit the Football League, particularly in Leagues 1 and League 2, and you won't necessarily get that usual feeling of excitement. I think we'll reserve that for when supporters are allowed back inside the stadiums. But that said, normally on a Saturday afternoon, we'd get just under 2 million listeners on 5 Live. So maybe we have a few more for those who actually aren't at the games. So welcome along, and you can of course take us with you wherever you go, listening to BBC Radio 5 Live through the BBC Sounds app, because it's our usual Saturday commentary and the score service as well, as Roy Hodgson just walks along the touchline in conversation with Ralph Hasenhüttl, who's still wearing the baseball cap for what is a bright afternoon in South London, as the two teams came out separately. Southampton in their change strip, the white shirts with the red sash and the white shorts, and Crystal Palace in the red and blue striped shirts. These are the two teams. Huwaita is in goal for Crystal Palace. It's a back four of Ward, Dan, Kouyaté and young Tyrick Mitchell making only his 5th appearance for the club. MacArthur and McCarthy in the centre of midfield, with Schlupp and Townsend out wide and Zaha in behind Jordan Ayew. As for Southampton, McCarthy is in goal. It's a back four of Walker-Peters, Stevens, Bednarak and Bertrand. A midfield of Smallbone, Ward-Prowse, Romeo and Redmond. There's no Armstrong, who was injured whilst he was on international duty with Scotland. And Danny Ings and Che Adams are the two up front. And this is the new Premier League anthem that has been... You can just hear it there, which has been recorded ahead of the new season. It was actually recorded in the Abbey Road Stadiums, and it involved 83 musicians and technicians, so you'll hear that at the start of every Premier League game. Rob Green.
Where's the Abbey Road Stadiums?
Did I say stadiums? Studios. I've got football on the brain already.
We're excited for the new football season, aren't we, Dana?
Tell you what, the Abbey Road Stadium's Cambridge.
That's very true. It might well have been. Yeah.
If I was quick enough, I could have come back with an instant riposte. But yeah, it is strange without supporters. None more so than here, of course. For me, this is one of the most atmospheric grounds in the top flight.
Yeah, they've really made an effort to create a special atmosphere here at Sellers Park, and having played here over the years, it is one of those grounds. It's an awkward ground to come to. It's a difficult ground to physically get in. They turn the heating up really warm in the dressing room, the away dressing room. It's cramped, and then you walk out onto the pitch and you're met by this noise from the fans, and obviously that's missing. I don't know whether the heaters are still on in the dressing room, but it's certainly a different atmosphere to what it is normally.
I'm glad that you've got the eyes are the ears are as sharp as ever, because just to keep me on check for what is always a frantic Saturday afternoon. Of course, Fulham 0, Arsenal 3, the first result of the Premier League. The two other results from the early kickoffs in the Championship: Birmingham City 1, Brentford 0, and Wycombe Wanderers 0, Rotherham United 1. But we do have reporters at every other Championship game. Ronnie Forsyth is at Ross County, and we have a couple of reporters in League 2 following the new boys. Harrogate Town away at Southend, and Barrow at home to Stevenage, plus Swindon against Rochdale is our featured game in League 1. But even when we don't have the reporters there, you'll hear the goals first here as they go in on BBC Radio 5 Live. And two sides really since lockdown who had contrasting fortunes.
Yeah, you've got one team that they're desperate for the season to end in Crystal Palace, couldn't create chances, couldn't get goals, and just ran out of options and ran out of ideas, whereas Southampton just didn't want the season to end. So, you'll have one team just going, let's keep going where we came from, and the other team saying, it's a fresh start.
Well, our referee is John Moss. The first whistle is that for the players to take the knee in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. The second whistle will be for them to get back onto their feet, and then we will now start. So we're underway. BBC Radio 5 Live. And 5 Live remains the home of the Premier League. The first of 140 live games. And don't forget, BBC Sounds mean you can take us with us wherever you go, as Crystal Palace are playing from right to left as we look here in the main stand. And therefore, Southampton in their predominantly white shirts and white shorts with that red sash from left to right. We've run through the two teams already. We're underway. The goals as they go in, and already Salford City are leading Exeter City by 1-0. Northampton Town 0, Wimbledon 1. And there's been an early goal too in the Championship at Ashton Gate. Katie Shanahan.
And what a start by Bristol City. They've scored in the first minute. It's Bristol City 1, Coventry 0. Brilliant quick run by Naki Wells. He crossed it into Jamie Patterson, who slots it home from the penalty spot to get his second goal of the season. A crushing start for the Championship newcomers, Coventry, as it's Bristol with the early goal. Bristol City 1, Coventry 0.
Flurry of early goals then in the Football League, and there's been an early penalty at Ross County. Roddy Forsyth.
And Donaldson brought down Edward, the Celtic striker. Edward is now waiting to take the penalty kick. The referee has cleared the penalty box. Here comes the French striker. He's jogging towards the ball, stops dead, and then places it past the goalkeeper. Celtic are a goal to the good, and 300 Staggies fans stay absolutely silent. Ross County 0, Celtic 1.
Cheers, Roddy. Not missed anything whilst we've been away here at Selhurst Park in South London. Stevens at the back looking to try and send Che Adams forward, but just coming across was Scott down, and out of play it goes for a throw off his head. Adams, who finished the season very, very well when you consider that he hadn't scored in his first 29 appearances for Southampton, but then scored 4 in his last 6. Walker-Peters, who's made that move from Tottenham permanent in the summer. Shaven-headed Romeo, and he's closed down. Ball nudged forward by Schlupp, but dealt with by Stevens, lifting it back downfield. And then a slice clearance by Dam puts him under pressure, runs off his shoulder and out of play for a throw. Southampton starting well.
Yeah, they're immediately putting Crystal Palace under pressure, using the energy that they've got just to press. They're not keeping it. They're keeping it simple. Sorry, they're just playing it forwards, looking forward early at the moment, and looking to press. And at the minute, Palace can't get out of their half.
Plymouth Argyle lead Blackpool by a goal to nil. Hull City 1-0 up at Gillingham in League One at Priestfield. Gillingham 0, Hull City 1. Of course, they were relegated last season. Walker-Peters with a throw, right corner of the area. Ings directs his header to Adams, and it runs out of play. The assistant referee. You're closer than referee John Moss, and yet you're watching John Moss to tell you what decision to make, and then all of a sudden, because he's given the signal, he gives the corner.
Yeah, it's an incredible one, isn't it? You think you've got your own eyes, haven't you? Just have a look and watch the play. It's a tough gig for the linesman. It's a tough gig for the referee. But when it's 5 yards away, just make the decision.
Bristol City are ahead, as are Bristol Rovers, whose last win actually in the league was against Sunderland in March. They've taken the lead at the Stadium of Light. Sunderland 0, Bristol Rovers 1, and Swindon Town lead Rochdale by a goal to nil, also in League One. Ward-Prowse with a corner kick, right hand side, it's an outswinger, and the header is saved by Huerta. It was Stevens just backing away, penalty spot area. The stanchion doesn't help here, always obscures the view when we're attacking that end away towards the right hand side, but in the end Huerta just pouncing on the ball as he moved towards his right, made the save. Motherwell leads St Johnstone by a goal to nil. Lincoln City 1-0 up at home to Oxford United as the ball is headed away at the heart of that Southampton defence by Bednarek. We told you that Swindon were ahead. Who scored it? Nikesh Rugani.
It's Tyler Smith who has put Swindon 1-0 ahead. It was a corner from the far side, whipped into the near post. A bit of a scramble in the 6-yard box, and Smith whipped into the far post with his right foot. Swindon 1, Rochdale 0.
They've won on the opening day in the last 6 seasons. Richie Wellens, of course, taking them into League One last season. We welcome listeners to the BBC World Service, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Selhurst Park for our coverage here of Crystal Palace against Southampton for the start of the new domestic season. As Romeo, with Southampton playing from left to right, goes back. Bednarek featured quite a lot under Ralph Hasenhüttl. Really did seize his opportunity, didn't get much of a look in under Mark Hughes as the low ball to the edge of the area. Adams plays it forward, Ings takes it on, and then Huerta dives at his feet inside the box.
Yeah, it's good play down the left from Southampton. It's ball into Che Adams, clever ball from him, looking for the run of Danny Ings. He's so bright, he's so alive all the time on the shoulder, just can't quite get it under control. Huerta comes out, makes a good claim, but Romeo here, he's dictating play. I mean, Højbjerg left, they were looking for a replacement, he's come in, he's seen as this long-term replacement for Southampton maybe, but he's dictating play at the moment.
Sheffield Wednesday taking the lead at Cardiff City in the Championship. Cardiff 0, Sheffield Wednesday 1. We'll get the details of that when we can. As here, Walker-Peters starts forward, stopped though by Jordan Ayew. MacArthur's just overrun that. The reason, by the way, that there's no Eze, who was signed from Queen's Park Rangers, or indeed Batshuayi, brought in on a season-long loan from Chelsea. It's the second time he's been on loan at Crystal Palace. Is that Roy Hodgson said ahead of kick-off is that they're lacking match fitness, so that's the reason why those two are on the bench. So there's actually no new faces in the sunshine here in the early stages of this game at Selhurst Park. BBC Radio 5 Live. Mentioned that there'd been a goal at Cardiff. News of it for that Sheffield Wednesday from Mark Webber.
Yeah, Cardiff 0, Sheffield Wednesday 1. An early gift to Wednesday from Cardiff. Cardiff's Joe Bennett gifting the ball in his own half to Josh Windass. He slotted home very easily. Bluebirds 0, Sheffield Wednesday 1.
Walker-Peters goes back. Stevens, Southampton, looking for that long, searching diagonal ball. Bertrand had got forward. They've made a very good start, haven't they, Southampton?
Really confident start. They look like they've got a great plan. They know where the players are going to make their run. Ryan Bertrand there on the shoulder of the opposition's fullback, and he times his run perfectly. It's a great ball. Can't direct his header, but they just look so confident. They look like they've left off where they finished last season, just enjoying the football.
Well, they had one loss in 9 after lockdown, but they finished it very well. Unbeaten in 7, in fact, when they'd won 4 and drawn 3. And you look at the whole of last season, even before lockdown, away from home, Southampton did very, very well. Only Manchester City and Liverpool actually did better than them when, in terms of games won on the travels and points collected as a result of that. And there's an intensity about them, as Ralph Hasenhüttl, all in black, watching on with his baseball cap, played out towards this right-hand side. It's an attack from left to right. Romeo to Walker-Peters, the former Tottenham right-back, former to Smallbone. Only a young lad, Smallbone, slicked hair, a little bit similar to that of Jack Grealish, but quite tall and lean, as Bednarek strides forward. In the change strip for Southampton, along the ground, out to Bertrand, nice football, forward and early to Redmond, looking to try and cross the ball, headed away though by Dan at the heart of the Crystal Palace defence, but they're playing with width and they're looking quite slick.
Yeah, the fullbacks love to go on, they've got that energy to push on and really create the chances for Southampton.
Townsend though will carry it forward for Crystal Palace, first real chance to attack, and it actually forces Stevens around the penalty spot area just to guide the ball safely behind and steer it for a corner kick, because I'm not too sure he knew who was loitering behind him, and that was Jordan Ayew. So it's a corner kick to Crystal Palace as Cambridge United lead Carlisle United by a goal to nil. Of course, that was a game that should have been a pilot event, but unfortunately that's not the case now at the Abbey Stadium. Not the Abbey Studios. Cambridge 1, Carlisle United 0. Corner kick then to Crystal Palace on that far side, the right arm aloft from Andros Townsend in the sunshine. Making the run towards the near side is Zaha. It's back towards Townsend. They work it out and back. And then it's a rather flat ball coming in, but that was cleared away by Southampton and played forward towards Redmond. And they see it further back, Crystal Palace, to Huweta, and then downfield.
It's a frustrating one, that, for players. You run all the way up the pitch, ready for the corner. They play a short corner, and it's not convincing. It's almost apologetic that they play it, and it's so slow that Southampton can cut it out so easily. The centre-half, who's trudged all the way up there, got to trudge all the way back with no reason. And you think, just put the ball in the box. It's your first corner of the season. Get it in there.
That's Rob Green on BBC Radio 5 Live, the former England international goalkeeper. Of course, West Ham and Chelsea here in the capital, amongst other clubs, Norwich, Leeds United, Huddersfield. As Zaha lets it come across his body, but then the challenge from Stevens was a quick and early one. Stevens has actually stayed down at the heart of that Southampton defence, and Palace then hit it long. That was the young left-back Tyrick Mitchell. McCarthy, who of course used to play for Crystal Palace, all in yellow, sees that Stevens is struggling and knocks it out to allow the physio to come onto the field of play.
Yeah, Alex McCarthy, former Crystal Palace player, he made a quite fairly significant move, big money move here from QPR where I was with him, and he just didn't work out for him. But since taking over at Southampton, he's really come into his own. Just watching the replay there, it just looked like an awkward tackle more than anything. He looks to be in quite a bit of pain, but a chance for the players to regroup and just have a drink, and maybe Palace just to take a breather and take stock of where they are, and they've been under the cosh, other than that corner, been under the cosh for the opening moments of this game.
Yeah, another London club in QPR, of course, for you, wasn't it? 4 million it was for McCarthy when he joined in 2016. Only the 7 appearances for Crystal Palace, but he's done well. He's now established himself as the number one after that debacle against Leicester City last October, and has played in the Premier League ever since for Southampton. Of course, since lockdown, we were used to having 5 substitutes in the Premier League. That won't happen. We've reverted to the 3. We also had the drinks break, and in the Premier League briefing that we've had, that won't happen unless the temperature exceeds 30 degrees. Although it's particularly warm here today, but we're not expecting to see the drinks break. So this natural stoppage here for Stevens, who's going to have to come off the field of play, I think, means that there is a lot of liquid refreshment being taken on board. 11 minutes played, and it's 0-0 here on BBC Radio 5 Live. There are no other goals to tell you about elsewhere in the Football League, but in the Championship, Sheffield Wednesday, remember, lead at Cardiff City by a goal to nil, and Bristol City a 1-0 up at home to Coventry. The results earlier: Fulham 0, Arsenal 3, Birmingham 1, Brentford 0, Wickham 0, Rotherham United 1, and play is back underway. And Stevens looks like he's okay to continue, Rob. Yeah, it's just an awkward clash of knees with Will Zaha, and it's a horrible one when you get one on the inside of the knee, because the kneecap of the opponent is so hard and bony, it really does sting. McCarthy downfield, hits it right-footed. Adams beaten in the air by Dan. Both Ward-Prowse and Walker-Peters both challenged for that ball as it runs out of play for a throw. Southampton have seen a lot of the ball, haven't they? So much of the possession.
Yeah, they're confident on the ball, and they've got those two players. It's almost a 4-2-2-2 that they play. The two wide men pushing narrow, up higher than the other two midfielders who sit, and that confidence between the two centre-halves and the two midfielders just allows them to maintain control of the ball and the pressure, and when they lose it, everybody goes and presses. Everyone goes, and it makes it so hard for Palace just to get out their own half.
Well, Ward-Prowse is going to take a free kick just forward of the centre circle as Southampton play from left to right, knocks it square. Romeo strakes it out to Bertrand on that far side. That was won by Danny Ings. Danny Ings, who featured this time last week, well, not quite this time last week, but it was last Saturday for England as a substitute against Iceland, as Southampton lose the ball and Townsend carries it forward, and here on the counter-attack at Crystal Palace, and it's chipped across to Zaha, and totally against the run of play, Crystal Palace lead, and Zaha couldn't miss. 13 minutes played, it's Crystal Palace 1, Southampton 0.
It's a great goal, it's a brilliant goal, it's one that's got Crystal Palace written all over, a Roy Hodgson goal written all over. It's Andros Townsend breaking down the right, they win the ball in midfield, makes good yards, and because the Southampton fullbacks push on so high, it just gives him the whole of the pitch to run into. He's got time to look up, sees Will Zaha on the far post, a brilliant finish, volley finish, control finish. Alice McCarthy, no chance. And having said that Southampton have the possession and have the control, it's the exposure that leaves them with the fullbacks pushed on. That's where they could be punished, and that's what Palace knew, and that's what they did.
So Townsend with the perfect delivery, and Zaha, who last year struggled in terms of goals, has just registered his 50th league goal of his career. And he only scored 4 last season, but he couldn't miss. It was on a plate from Townsend.
Yeah, it was brilliant. He scored in the pre-season friendly last week, a great goal, smashed one in at the same end, in the same corner. So maybe he's got a taste for it again. It's just something like that can spark it for a player. Just the pre-season friendly, getting a goal. But certainly, it was a brilliant cross, a wonderful finish, and it is just one, as you say, you look at it, it looks simple, but actually he had so much time to sit and look and wait for the ball to arrive to him. He could have missed.
So Zaha with the controlled volley, and against the run of play they lead by a goal to nil. Southampton had done the majority of the pressing in this game so far. Livingston 1, Hamilton 0 in the Premiership. Rangers have taken the lead at home to Dundee United. Ryan Kent has scored at Ibrox, and Cambridge United have got a second goal at home to Carlisle United, and it's St Mirren 0, Hibs 1. And Barrow have just taken the lead from the penalty spot. Barrow, who back in the Football League, they've drawn both of their first 2 games 0-0, so it's the first goal that they've scored as a Football League side once more. And at Holker Street, it's Barrow 1, Stevenage 0. Dior Angos from the penalty spot giving Barrow the lead. 1-0 here in the only game in the Premier League, and it's scored by Crystal Palace, who, if you were to speak to Roy Hodgson, I mean, last season 1 win in 9, 8 without a win. First time in his career, I think, that he'd actually suffered 7 defeats in a row, certainly as far as the Premier League was concerned, or as a Premier League manager. But he was saying that the defeats, he couldn't put them down to bad performances or a lack of attitude. They had played a number of the top 6 sides in that run-in last season, and so a return to winning ways, the perfect fillip at the start of this new season, if of course it was to stay that way. Still a long way to go. We told you about the news from that penalty for Barrow. We can actually go to Holker Street now, and Andy Sixsmith.
Yeah, Deno, 11 minutes is all it took for Barrow to make their mark back in the Football League, and it was of course from the penalty spot like you described. It was a cast iron penalty. Brad Barry clear down the right hand side, he was side down. The referee Scott Oldham had little choice but to point to the spot, and I tell you what, Dior Angus was so calm, so collected as he stepped up and drove it right footed into the bottom right hand corner. Barrow have started very, very brightly indeed, and they have their first goal in the Football League in 48 years. Barrow 1, Stevenage 0.
Aberdeen 1, Kilmarnock 0, Fleetwood 1, Burton Albion 0. 2 of the latest scores for you. The goals as they go in on BBC Radio 5 Live. Southampton trailing by a goal to nil here. Romeo back then by Bednarek. Said before about him featuring under Hasenhüttl. He started in 58 now of the last 62 Premier League games under Hasenhüttl, as it's hit forward by Ward-Prowse only as far as MacArthur chips it out towards Zaha, the goal scorer, keeps the ball in play on the left hand side, level with the penalty area. Palace in their red and blue shirts attacking from right to left, and it will go out for a goal kick. Well, I was just watching there the first coming together of Ward-Prowse and Zaha, because there has been run-ins between the two in the past.
Yeah, and he did quite well there. Ward-Prowse, he stepped across. Will Zaha didn't commit and just got his body in the way. And I think it was just the frustration that Will Zaha knew what he'd done wrong, and he immediately turned around. And following enough, Danny Ings was there recovering back as well. And Danny Ings has always got something to say. Lively guy, likes to have a chat on the pitch, and they had a nice little conflab between the two. But yeah, it's one that Ward-Prowse showed in the week with the penalty incident for England, that he's got a darker side to him.
Yes, I think actually Hasenhüttl tried to encourage that from him, didn't he? He had this reputation of being a nice lad, so just to try and bring out that the dark arts, the side of the game, just a little bit of gamesmanship maybe for James Ward-Prowse, and certainly as he's alleged to have dug up that penalty spot for Bjarnason last week that he blazed over, and that run-in that he's had with Zaha on a couple of occasions in the past. He responded to a chant that the Southampton supporters said, "You've got Zaha in your pocket." And whilst he was playing here last season, he went to check his pocket. So he's certainly revelling in this new image of James Ward-Prowse, and I'm sure he'll be buoyed by the fact that last week in Reykjavik was his first England start of his international career. Southampton trailing. Redmond, central area. He's got Bertrand bombing on ahead of him on that far side. Redmond steps out of the way of Townsend. He's forced a little bit further out wide on that left-hand side, and then it's just stroked back by Bednarek. But Ward-Prowse will just drop in between the two central defenders. But he's closed down by Jordan Ayew and goes further back to McCarthy, all in yellow. Northampton have equalised at home to Wimbledon. It's 1-1, and Hibs have got a second goal at St Mirren in the Scottish Premiership. They strike it long. Southampton rolls off the body of Adams, collected on the left-hand side by Redmond, infield to Romeo. Romeo now will spread it out to Walker-Peters. He likes to get forward at every opportunity. He's closed down though on this near side by Tyrick Mitchell. He runs out of play that Walker-Peters will pick up very quickly, throws it back to Stevens, comes under pressure. They're working hard, Crystal Palace, to try and close Southampton down at every opportunity, as then Walker-Peters was just caught by Zaha. Actually, they're going to continue playing there. Walker-Peters is back onto his feet. Now it goes towards Bertrand on the left-hand side. Bertrand infield now to Ward-Prowse. Walker-Peters is making the run. Wasn't spotted that occasion by Ward-Prowse. Stevens, though, hits the ball over the top. Redmond's made the run, and it comes off the head of Ward, and it will be dealt with by Andros Townsend. Another goal at Ross County. Roddy Forsyth.
And another goal for Celtic, and more defensive lapses by Ross County. In this case, a free kick allowed to drop into the box, and there was Albion Ajeti, just touched the ball home, and again silence amongst the 300 Ross County supporters, who are not having a good afternoon despite the resumption of spectators at football matches. Ross County 0, Celtic 2.
Celtic then comfortable. Remember, Rangers lead by a goal to 0. Salford 1, Exeter City 1, so Exeter have just equalised at Moor Lane in League 2. Hamilton has claimed pole for the qualifying in the Tuscan Grand Prix. It's his 95th career pole for Lewis Hamilton, ahead of Bottas and Verstappen. Of course, that'll be on 5 Live Sport tomorrow. Sports Extra, I would imagine, with our commentaries of West Bromwich Albion against Leicester at 2, followed by Tottenham against Everton at 4:30. Premier League Sunday on BBC Radio 5 Live, and more games to come on Monday. An early start, in fact, for Lord Chapman. Sheffield United Wolves is the 6 o'clock kickoff. Brighton Chelsea at 8:15. We've got racing today. It's the St Ledger, the early betting. What's the show, John Hunt?
Yes, it couldn't be much more open here, Ian, to be honest. Just minutes away from the Ledger. Hukum, joint favourite with Santiago at 7-2. Frankie Dettori rides Santiago, and he's just won the previous race as well on board Wichita, the Park Stakes. And Pile Driver's a 4-1 chance. The St Ledger, minutes away.
And it'll be here on BBC Radio 5 Live as Crystal Palace leading by a goal to nil. Ward-Prowse running into his penalty area, tidies up, long clearance by Stevens, trying to set Adams away out towards that far side. Kouyaté, who's playing alongside Dan at the heart of that Palace defence due to injuries, comes across, deals with it, and deals with it very effectively.
Yeah, it's good defending there from Kouyaté because he's up against a keen runner, and in himself he's a rangy guy, and he got across there, got his body in the way, just used his experience and let the ball run out of play. But Palace have come into the game more since scoring. They've taken confidence from that, but also in their defensive shape. They know if they stay narrow, the two wide men of Southampton are negated a bit, and the one pass they've got to deal with is the fullbacks bombing on. Now they know that they've got time to get across to block off that run as well, or to clear the long ball. So all in all, I think Roy Hodgson will be quite pleased with not only the goal start, but also how their shape is working out.
Well, they scored in the 13th minute, and you look back at last season, they actually scored only 31 goals throughout. It was the fewest second fewest in the Premier League. Only Norwich had scored fewer. They only scored 10 goals in the first half of games last season, and in fact, one goal in the first 15 minutes was the joint lowest in all four divisions, along with Sheffield United and Shrewsbury. So to score one inside the opening quarter of an hour today certainly is something to please Roy Hodgson, I'm sure, because they're not necessarily at full strength, as we were saying. Northampton 1, Wimbledon 2 is the latest score in League One. We know that Barrow are leading Stevenage by a goal to nil. How are the other new boys faring at Roots Hall? Aaron Paul.
Welcome to the EFL, Harrogate Town. Southend 0, Harrogate 1. Jack Muldoon inside the area, drilling the ball in at the near post. The ball fell kindly for him, and there is Harrogate Town's first ever Football League goal. Southend 0, Harrogate Town 1.
Simon Weaver likes to go after sides, he likes to play on the front foot, and they've certainly made a positive start for their first ever game.